few years ago, I saw a cartoon. What if Pentecost happened today? It shows the voice of God speaking from a cloud. I shall send down my spirit and it will be like a flame upon your heads. The people gathered below have skeptical, somewhat disturbed looks on their faces. One says, wait, we have to have a fire drill first. Another, well, does this mean I can't wear a hat? One church member announces, this is a health and safety nightmare. While someone else declared, can't do this, church is a non-smoking area. A concerned trustee wonders, what do we do if we set off the fire alarm? It was an older cartoon, so I decided to give it a coronavirus pandemic makeover, adding to the flames the rush of a violent wind that is also a part of Pentecost. So here goes my additions. No wind. We don't know if the coronavirus is airborne or not. Someone else would say, well, those tongues of fire, that's going to make wearing face masks extremely difficult. And lastly, we're not socially distancing. We can't be all together in one place like this anymore. Since the sermon is virtual, maybe it's a good thing I can't hear you groan or see you rolling your eyes at my attempted joke. But don't we wish that we were all together in one place on this day of Pentecost? Virtually is definitely not how any of us wanted to celebrate the birthday of the church. Like the disciples in both our reading from Acts and John, we're supposed to be all together in one place. In a sanctuary decorated with bright red paraments, singing spirit songs and celebrating in one place together God's mighty acts worked through the gift of the Holy Spirit. But as writer Debbie Thomas reminded me, we are in one place. It's just not the place we want to be. She writes, we're in a hard place, a hollow place, a place of vulnerability and grief. We're together in our uncertainty, together in our loss, together in our hopes and fears. I think about it. We're together in a very unsettled place, and it's hard. The virus and the lockdown, the uncertainties of the future are all a part of it. But adding to our pain and grief this week is the death and the fallout of George Floyd. His cries of, I can't breathe, take our own breath away, as do the images of violence that followed. Which is why I think today is so important. Pentecost invites us to remember the gift of the Holy Spirit and to reclaim it. To reclaim it as both John and Luke in Acts describe the gift. In our reading from John, the disciples were together, afraid, hiding behind locked doors, when Jesus comes among them and whispers to them, peace be with you. Then he breathed on them, saying, receive the Holy Spirit. Receive this gift, the advocate, the Spirit of truth, the comforter, the counselor, the guide. Receive the Holy Spirit, the paraclete, God alongside you, God within you. This passage is sometimes called the Johannine Pentecost. In John's Gospel, Jesus gives the gift of the Holy Spirit before his ascension, while in Acts, the gift is given after his ascension, when the Jews are gathered together in Jerusalem for the festival of Pentecost. As Luke tells the story in Acts, the disciples were all together in one place, still hiding in fear, still feeling unsettled, uncertain, anxious. Then the Holy Spirit descends on them. Described as a rush of wind and tongues of fire, it's a display of power in the face of their fear, contrasting the peaceful, comforting breath gift of the Holy Spirit in John's Gospel. Different Gospels, different timelines, different attributes, but all describing the same Holy Spirit. The same Holy Spirit who comes with peace and power, wind and fire. Exactly what the disciples needed then, and exactly what we need today. Peace and power, wind and fire. Dangerous and comforting, destructive and transforming. Wind can be peaceful and comforting, right? A puff of air that comes on a hot day, the breath that fills a balloon for a party, or the cool breeze that blows across the water. Wind is also powerful and transforming. We know that it can come as a dangerous tornado, but wind also moves and energizes. It creates power through windmills. It stirs up leaves on a fall day, carries sailboats across a lake, sends kites flying and birds soaring. Fire can be peaceful. How many nights in this shelter-in-place have you gathered with family or neighbors out in the backyard around a fire pit, watching the flames dancing, mesmerizing, feeling their warmth, comforting you? But fires are also dangerous, right? I can still see the images of the koala bears seeking refuge from last year's fires in Australia. But fires also transform and purify. Forest fires are often intentionally set to burn the undergrowth so that new life can come forth. A metalworker fires refine, removing impurities to reveal the precious metal. The Holy Spirit is peace and power, wind and fire in our own lives, calming and comforting us in the anxious, unsettled places of our lives, but also empowering us to continue to bear witness to the love of God, moving us to action for Jesus Christ, stirring our hearts to reach out to our neighbors, burning away the sin in our lives that keeps us from God, refining us, remolding us, shaping us into children of God who are able to stand firm in the face of uncertainty and fear. Today, we celebrate the gift of the Holy Spirit, given to us just as it was to the first disciples. Like them, we are all together in one place, just not the same physical place, and definitely not the place we wish we were. But as promised, when Christ ascended into heaven, he did not leave us alone. The Holy Spirit comes to us in all the places we are, as fire in our hearts, wind in our walks, power in our actions, and peace in our lives. So today, despite the anxious, unsettling, fearful place that we find ourselves, today we celebrate. On this day of Pentecost, we celebrate the Holy Spirit who comes alongside us in every place to remind us God is with us. We are never alone. On this day of Pentecost, we celebrate the Holy Spirit who convicts us of our sin, who challenges us to see all people as children of God, and who empowers us to stand up against injustice and racism so that no one again ever cries out, "I can't breathe." On this day of Pentecost, we celebrate the Holy Spirit who comes to us in the midst of change and uncertainty to remind us the future is and always will be in God's hands. On this day of Pentecost, we celebrate the Holy Spirit who speaks God's truth to us over the cacophony of voices in our world, and who moves us to then speak God's truth in love with all people. On this day of Pentecost, we celebrate the Holy Spirit who comes to us to remind us of all that Jesus has taught us, and who especially comes to us in every place that is hard, unsettled, fearful, or anxious, and breathes to us the words of Jesus Christ, "Peace be with you." In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.